Attention! Please be advised. The following episode contains spoilers. Don't say we didn't warn you.
For the record, that's not the description for my 5-star review.
Okay.
That is the description for mine,
I'll buy
though.
them a lunch.
Yes, we will have a nice lunch and chat.
So 1 out of 5.
Walk out of a theater. Who am I blowing?
Nerd On.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Nerd On, the podcast you didn't need, but you deserve. My name's Corey, and I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. We're going to be talking about Blade Runner tonight, I believe. Is that right? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Blade Runner
Yeah,
and
no,
Blade Runner
For a little bit,
2049.
at least.
Yeah.
I
At
don't know
least
if
the first
anyone
5
just got
minutes.
my reference to the film, but
No.
it's the last monologue from the first Blade Runner.
Oh.
Alone on that. Cool. I watched it today. No big deal.
Was that the Almost
I watched it
character who
last
said
week.
What?
that? Was that Almost who said that at the very end? Who said that at the very end?
No, it was Roy.
Oh.
Anyway, to my left.
Ali, I am a resident YouTuber. We're still doing this. This many episodes in.
You can.
I mean, someone
You
might
can say
jump in
anything
just
you
because
want.
they're like, ooh, Blade
That's
Runner.
true.
Screw
Yeah,
the
yeah.
origin stuff. Let's just get right into it. So
Big fan of Blade Runner, big fan of sci-fi.
Hmm.
And I'm very
Ooh.
excited to talk about this movie.
Yeah. I'm Josh, one of the hosts. I mean, if you're new to the show, I do the audio. I'm producer, yada, yada, yada.
What if they're not new to the show?
If you're not new to the show, I'm just Josh.
He's
Just joshing ya.
Yeah,
On
hate it.
Go back,
Twitter.
and, go back and listen to episode 1
Yeah.
and then come back.
Then listen to 2 and 3, and then come back here.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
What's
up,
up,
Tom?
y'all? This is Tom, resident comic book nerd. And I'm totally cool if you started with this one first because that's how comic books usually are. You just jump right in. You don't even know what the hell's going on. You're just like,
That's fair.
all right, apparently Batman's got 4 Robins. I don't know why. I thought 1 was good enough.
It's never enough.
I know. Resident film snob, connoisseur.
So snobby.
I know. I'm going to just trash this movie. It's like that old woman from Birdman, just trashing everything she sees in sight.
As we established
Oh,
in
man.
last episode, we're just 4 grumpy old men.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't know that if you started today.
Yeah.
So you should check
true.
those out.
So
You'll know by the end.
So you went back on your word. Actually,
Yeah.
Tom does want you to go back and check.
No,
it
no,
out.
no. I'm okay with
Yeah.
you starting with this one, but you should check those other ones
Oh,
out.
I
too.
see. Retroactively, I understand.
So we're talking about Blade Runner.
2049 and the first one.
In the
Yeah,
OG,
And the
baby.
first one. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Talk about this one. We gotta
Um,
talk about the first.
It relates.
But I don't know if you'll hear it in the beginning. No, we're gonna have spoilers all day, every day, every day, every day.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
There will be spoilers. So if you don't want to listen,
Look, if you haven't seen it yet,
Slap
pause
yourself.
this.
yeah.
Go to the movie theater right down the street. I know there's one playing in half an hour. Go see that, and
Yeah.
3 hours later, come back and resume this podcast.
Yeah.
And
Easy peasy.
also spoilers for the first one. So if you haven't seen that,
Slap
go
yourself.
see that first.
Slap yourself.
Slap yourself.
Because it's
Yeah.
been too long.
Climb out from under the rock that you
Just
have been living.
hit pause, and then you see that button a little bit to the right that says store in iTunes. Just click on that.
Yeah.
Buy it
Buy Blade Runner.
because it's worth
Watch
owning.
Yeah.
But hold on, real quick, for our listeners at home, the theatrical cut, or the final cut, or the director's cut.
Here's my opinion on that.
Mm-hmm.
I watched all of them. I watched all of them last year, and the final cut is by far my favorite one.
Okay.
Should we go
By
over what
far,
that is?
and I
'Cause
think it's-
I don't think I think I've seen a version.
What is the difference, sir?
Yeah.
So the theatrical cut has the infamous god awful narration. The story or the urban myth behind that is that the studio said, "Hey, you have to have this narration." And Ridley Scott and Harrison Ford were like, "We don't want to." So what Harrison Ford apparently did, and this again, urban legend,
Was he the one that's supposed
he
to narrate?
threw it. Yeah, he threw it. He did a terrible job at it on purpose, thinking the studio will never use it, and then they put it in the movie. And so it's in there in the theatrical version. They also did this.
Interesting.
They also made Ridley Scott have this ending that's like a right off into the sunset. Let me wrap everything up in a bow with narration. Everything's happy and everything's good.
Like a Western almost.
Leaving nothing up to the imagination of the viewer.
Fun fact about that, they used some cuttings from The Shining. I was just kind of sitting in the corner.
Did they really?
Yeah, those those shots in the end.
Yeah.
They're from The Shining.
Oh my God.
Not from
Because
The
it's like
Shining,
landscape
but
stuff.
stuff that they we're
And
going
then-
to use.
B-roll.
Yeah.
Between the director's cut and the final cut, it's very small little things, such as they put a green filter on the final cut, which
Yeah.
he's happier
Which
with.
makes it more sci-fi looking.
Right.
Yeah.
And,
And then
there's
the
about
director's cut, it's more blue, which
Right.
gives it more of like a noir feel.
and there's about 4 seconds of this dream sequence that ties into the little origami unicorn at the end of the
That
original.
Deckard has.
Right, which is supposed to give the audience this like, is he a replicant? Is he not?
Because in the director's cut, it's a lot more prominent that he is a replicant. And in
No, in the director's cut, it's not.
and in the final, he is.
The final
Okay,
one, he
I'm
puts it in
switching
there because it's a dream about a unicorn where the whole thing is like, and we'll get into this.
Okay, yeah.
If imprinted memories,
Implanted.
memories. Thank you. It would have to be implanted because who the fuck's seen a unicorn?
Yeah.
So anyway, those are the 3 differences. Go see the final. cut.
Theatrical, final, director.
Yeah.
Chef's choice. We have
Final
Corey.
here.
I
And
think
then-
I've only seen the final.
I think you've only seen. That's okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I've only seen the director.
I've
Or
seen
maybe-
final and director.
Okay.
I don't know.
The finals.
No, I don't
finals
know.
my favorite. I think. What about you,
I can't
Josh?
remember.
I think I'm a big fan of the director's cut. I
All right.
enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It's also, isn't it like a little bit longer?
The final one, I believe, is
Okay.
because it has the
Yeah.
sequence.
unicorn.
I don't know. They both end the same, so there's
Tom
that.
is super sassy tonight.
As long as the
Little bit.
theatrical cut isn't your favorite, we can still be friends.
So everybody knows we are recording much later than we normally do.
We are.
Yes.
And because we wanted to get this in, we wanted to talk about this because we are so
Because we love getting it in.
fucking excited.
Soup's excited. Guys.
Yes.
Mhm.
So Blade Runner came out in 1982.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of good movies
Great
came out
year.
in 1982.
My favorite horror film, The Thing, which we'll
Yeah.
do an episode about someday, right, Tom?
No.
E.T.
Okay. Came out. Yeah, E.T., which my
E.T..
wife is terrified of.
To this day,
Yeah, she said
She's
looks
afraid of
he
Drew
looks
Barrymore?
like a I believe she said moist skin sack, and that freaks her out. I think was her.
okay.
I could be fudging, but moist was thrown around.
Yeah.
So I mean, I get it, and she doesn't like his voice, which was apparently his old teacher, Steven
Oh.
Spielberg's old chain smoking teacher. is E.T.
So
E.T..
talking about Blade Runner.
Yeah, sorry.
let's talk about the original, right? We talked about the final cut, theatrical cut, director's cut.
Yeah.
What are our feelings about it in terms of just purely as a film, as entertainment, right? We could always go about critiquing it and analyzing it, but did we just enjoy it? Would any other person that can get a raging nerd on could enjoy?
Oh, I love
I
it.
think, I
Yeah.
mean, I think one of its biggest accomplishments in my eyes is its ability to take, like what you would normally see as like hard sci-fi or whatever,
Mhm.
but actually make it somewhat grounded,
Yep.
and by making it this sort of like noir detective story,
Yeah.
which
So, yeah.
you don't see really successfully done.
I was gonna say it mixes this like 1930s, 40s, and 50s detective story with
With the duster jacket and
Which
everything.
I
Right,
feel
with
could
this
only be
future.
accomplished with Harrison Ford.
I feel like
I feel like
yes.
I don't think there's
With the
that many
gravelly
other
voice.
actors
Yeah.
that could really pull off that
That
charisma
suave
and the
and-
yeah.
Yeah, no
Harrison
one takes
Ford,
a punch like
no.
Harrison Ford. I'll
Yeah.
tell you that much.
And
so
his acting,
visually, it was like stunning. Even
Yeah.
to this day, it's still an impressive looking
Yeah.
movie.
It's one of those things that you watch it and you're like, oh God, it's so good. It's
And-
80s good.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about
Yeah.
I love in the 80s is that this was like I think the Renaissance, the golden era of like sci-fi and like
I agree with that
using
100%.
practicals and also
definitely.
just minis, miniature sets. Like Corey was talking about, like other sci-fi films like E.T. and everything. That this is like, but you have Ridley Scott who would, I think he's coming off of Alien and then
Yeah.
doing Blade Runner, and so like to me, I call this like Ridley Scott's golden era too.
Actually, I was going to bring that up in my little bit. We were talking the other day about directors and like seeing their early stuff and then seeing their like style fully
Yeah.
realized. And I think I agree with you. This is his like style fully realized, because something I found out recently that I didn't know about somehow went right over my head is Ridley Scott directed the 1984 Apple commercial.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got that same,
What's it called?
Sorry, it's
I
got
think
the
it's
same
called
feel to it.
1984.
It's got that
1984.
like cyberpunk, that high technology, low living kind of vibe.
Monolithic thing
Yeah.
that people
It's
worship.
a little like Brazil. too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that is like seeing him go from that to this, the 1982 Blade Runner is exactly what you were talking about. fully
Nothing like
realized.
Thelma and Louise, which
But yeah, it's funny because like looking into that, Alien, you have Blade Runner, then you like go in to see like some of his
Gladiator,
more
like
recent
later-
ones,
yeah, later stuff.
Gladiator, and then you have the Counselor, and then all of a sudden, people are saying like he's going back to his glory days of like, you have The Martian, which was like Academy nominated, and everyone thought that was just going to sweep. And then, he's coming back to his franchise of Alien. Covenant came in. He directed it? Anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe so.
And, I thoroughly enjoyed it because I felt like it was kind of a comeback to his franchise. And now, Blade Runner, he produced it, and oversaw the writing process. And the exact same writer who wrote the first one wrote this one.
Which I love when they do that.
Yeah.
And
cool thing, so he had the story and screenplay by two people, the original writer, forget his name, and then also the same writer who wrote Logan and Green Lantern and all these other good films.
That's cool. I know that.
So,
but it's also based on a novel called Do Androids
Dream
of Electric
Sheep?
Yeah. I swear I can speak.
I said electric sleep, so don't worry
It's a
about
series
it.
of electric.
Yeah.
There's-
Well, no, it was one novel. He does have, what's funny is Amazon's going to be creating a show based on Philip K. Dick. That's his name. His short stories. But the name Blade Runner came from a novel that was never released. That's not by Philip K. Dick.
Wow.
But
Oh, interesting.
yeah,
I didn't know that.
weird stuff. But so it's based on that. But I just love it when they bring back original writers.
There were other novels written, but they weren't by the same. They weren't obviously by him.
Yeah.
But they were like
Right.
in that line of
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
That
The Blade
influenced it.
Runner
Yeah.
or something like that. So, but it's good stuff.
It is. It's the original Blade Runner for me. I mean, of course, all the points we've talked about already, but just visually is probably one of my favorites. Definitely my top 5 for visual aesthetics as it goes. That and I believe it is credited, if not the only movie, or one of the few movies that invented the style of cyberpunk, which I mentioned before, is that
Sure.
high technology but low style of living, which
Yeah.
is really, for like you were saying before, for a noir like this, is really perfect. It's almost like you're getting this really intimate story, but the world itself is really kind of uncaring, and it's kind of juxtaposed against that.
You had flying cars. You had incredible
Right.
scope.
Well, then and then the social
But then-
hierarchy of everything is
You had the streets.
right. So there was something, I was reading something online about how it was trying to also make a point of social hierarchy at the time as well, where you had, all these rich people have really clean, beautiful homes that look out over vistas and beautiful, and all of them are white people. And then you have the city where it's this chaos and it all
Amalgamation.
functions,
Have
but
my
it's all
people,
it's all multicultural,
brown
right?
people, the brown.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see that. I think they kind of still stayed with that with the 2049 as well, which is really
The
interesting.
great thing that I always loved in film, it's whenever you do a period piece, whether it's in the future or in the past, wherever year that it's made, the filmmaker has a responsibility to talk about the current social economic
I agree.
status of things that are now so
Yeah.
a film that's made now and based in 2049 will definitely have similar existential conversations that we have.
Yeah.
So I think again, we talked about it earlier with Arrival and how the great thing about sci-fi as a genre is that it can have digestible conversations of what we are struggling with in humanity now.
Yeah. I think what's interesting about the story too is it's like you were talking about, there's a society thing that is different, but they only really hint at high society. They don't really show you.
Right.
We're getting the dirty side. We're getting the streets view. And, I just think it's so cool.
I didn't even think about that before. Everything we see of high society is only when our character, who is not from it, is there.
Yeah.
We never really see the behind the scenes.
And they talk
it's
about
little
off
glimpses,
world and
little glimpses here and there, but that's about it.
Like
Yeah.
Wallace's office, I think, is one of the only places you see.
Yeah.
yeah.
With that.
The only the rest of it follows K around, and it's only what he sees.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's really cool. I never even noticed that. I
Which
like
is
that.
something that I loved about this was that it took. First off, it's somehow it's an actual sequel
Yeah.
to a movie, which, funny enough, one of the only few other movies that I feel pulled it off was Clerks 2.
Yeah.
It's being an actual movie with such a huge time gap
Yeah.
between.
Oh my god.
Train Spotting
Yeah.
2. was
Trainspotting
another one of
2.
those.
There's
nailed
more
it.
respectable,
Yeah.
other relevant.
It was a
comparisons,
continuation. You felt like it was
You felt like it
Jumanji
was an
2, right?
actual.
yeah,
I'm kidding.
yeah,
I'm
totally.
kidding.
God, do not get me started on that.
Do we before? I mean, I know we want to talk about 2049
Yeah.
because it's definitely what we just watched. But
Twice.
before we get into it, do we want to for the first one kind of wrap up with what's our favorite parts
Of the first
of
one?
the first one? Then we could get right into 2049, talk about it as a sequel and everything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have a lot to say about the films together as well, but if we want to wrap up on the first one, I'm super down for that.
Well,
I'd
I
love to
mean,
hear your guys'
it's
favorite parts.
some like kind of factual stuff. It was nominated for this is Blade Runner 1982, was nominated for Best Art Direction, Set Direction, which totally makes sense. Best effects,
that
visual
building,
effects.
the Tyrell, now the Wallace building in the 2049
pyramid, pretty much.
All the lights.
Yeah.
I think it was something like 5 miles of LEDs that they had to put in there, and there was something going on. Were you telling me about this? There was a strike going on, so it gave them extra time to work on the set.
Nope.
Oh,
Someone
wow.
was telling me about that.
I did not know that.
Apparently there was some, I could be totally wrong about this. This is all hearsay, but apparently someone said that there was some sort of strike going on, and so there was extra time to work on the set and scenery.
So they could put even more candles into that room.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, nominated for an Oscar for original score. So, I mean, there are things that
Oh yeah, the score.
Yeah.
It's just so like
Vangelis, I think that's what his name was. He also did Chariots of Fire.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know. It was such a good movie. I mean, we were watching it. My wife and I watched it the night before we all went and saw it, and I just forgot how good it was. It's just so good.
It holds up. It's
but it's
funny that
80s
it's
good.
I mean, it's 2019, which is kind
Yeah.
of funny, but it does. It really holds up. I mean, it's what I always had imagined this, like if technology has just taken off and we as a society didn't really keep up with it, that's exactly how I imagined it would be.
Yeah.
I think if we're talking about favorite parts,
Yeah.
I think it's funny because I think this is now one of my favorite parts or one of my favorite aspects of the movie, retroactively having seen 2049.
Yeah.
And that's Daryl Hannah's connection or relationship with that human, the toy maker.
JF.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
JF Sebastian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He they kind of expanded on that a lot more in 2049, but that relationship of him knowing that she's a replicant and them still
Him not caring.
having, and him not caring and wanting to like build a relationship.
It's because they're both kind of outcasts in a sense, right?
Right.
So they kind of click on that, which is really nice.
Exactly. And just
Yeah.
that dynamic and the relationship that was built in that little bit.
And she cut her arm real good on that movie too.
Yeah,
That movie where she runs away from him the first time.
Yeah.
Her arm goes right through a window, and apparently that wasn't planned. She slipped, and it's got this big old scar on her arm now.
Oh, geez.
But yeah, fun fact.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I always thought that was a really interesting relationship, and I think till I watched it the second time through, I didn't realize that their whole connection is just based on the fact that they both don't really have anyone else who really likes them. So
Yeah.
may as well like each other.
I mean, it's to me, I mean, it's an 80s movie.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it's like in a previous episode when we were comparing video games. It's like if you compare something that's from 20 years ago or now 30 years ago, 35 actually, it's like, well, for that time it was good. And yes, it does hold up, but you have to put it in this pocket in your mind of like, that's what movies were like. And you can't really, if it came out nowadays, people would be like, what is this?
Well, I mean, there's
Sexual assault.
there was a game that
I say
recently
no.
came out that like was a game about, it's like in 1991, like it's the 90s in the reference of the future, where it's like velociraptors with lasers. I don't know if you know the game. I forget it was marketed that way. Like
I don't.
Also, like in YouTube, they had a Kung Fury.
Yeah.
Where
Kung
like
Fury.
it's a movie about like in the 80s, and like they're thinking of like futuristics of like I can hack into time, and like T-Rexes would have lasers, and there's Amazon.
Yeah.
It's like I just love it. It was such like an imaginative, creative time.
Oh, the 80s
Yeah.
sci-fi? I mean, I have a buddy of mine that's all we do is we're just working our way through every 80s sci-fi film because it's the best. It's the best sci-fi.
That's a good goal to have.
Tom, you brought it up. What is your favorite part?
It's funny because I was actually thinking about the part that Ali was talking about. It's not more like it's a favorite part. It's more like it's a favorite aspect of it. Obviously, like again, I love the idea of identity, and I love the idea of like it's kind of like you don't know who you are and what you are, and it's funny because I've watched Blade Runner in like as an adult. I never watched it like as a kid growing up or anything like that. But watching a bunch of, which we'll get into, like watching a bunch of anime that was highly inspired by it. When I watched it, I was like, oh shit, this is the godfather of this idea.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it was really cool just because I think, as we realize the world is getting bigger, but also smaller at the same time, like we start losing ourselves in like this mass of like technology and what our identities would be. So it was kind of that idea of like two people who, aren't of the same, like origin, they can still, find love and everything. It was really, I like that a lot.
Nice. My favorite part.
Yeah, Josh, what do you got?
I think I just really, it's hard to pick a favorite part when it comes to that movie. I like the mystery that's been over the movie for a long time of
Is
like,
he, isn't he?
yeah, is he or isn't he? And it's like some people are like, oh yeah, there's no mystery.
Well, there's
he
also
totally
like
is. Or
there's also like Ridley Scott has gone on record to say he is, and then Harrison Ford has gone on record to say he isn't. So it's also very confusing.
and then they had drinks right after him, like, yeah, got him.
Yeah, high five. Harrison Ford and Ridley just high fiving at a bar.
Forever, people will be going, is he? Is he?
Yeah.
But no, they won't. Not anymore.
Mine's super cliche. That speech at the end.
No, yeah.
Is phenomenal. I think it's beautiful. They, talking about, I talk to Tom about this all the time. I always think about how life and how life goes by quick, and it's just kind of this thing. And he has this moment where he's talking about, those moments, the moments we have, he's like, are going to be lost to time in tears and rain. And that hit me. I think I watched it at a time in my life too, where I was feeling really insignificant. As far as like, I was watching a lot of Cosmos and reading a lot of science, and like, he was like, "We're the last second on the last day of the calendar of the galaxy," and I was like, "Oh God, tears and rain." So that speech has always stuck out to me, and I think it's beautifully written as well. I think it's really great. And he has another line too when he meets that I always really liked when he meets the guy who makes the eyes, and he says, "If you could see what I've seen with your eyes." I loved that line. I loved it so much.
Throwback to the intro.
Dang.
I know.
Throwback to the intro.
You need to
during the speech. That's what he said. He goes, "The things I've seen, you people wouldn't believe."
You need to go listen to Monty Python's Always Look on the Bright Side.
I know. I do. I really do. I'm a happy person. I promise. Should we transition into
now 2049?
Man,
that's what we're here for.
So good. It was a continuation. It recently Trainspotting 2 came out, and it was you watched, and if you were a fan of Trainspotting, you were like, okay, cool. I walked away going, thank you.
Josh and I fanboyed super hard about that movie, by the way.
We're not having an episode about it. We probably will.
We will.
At some point we will.
We will, sure.
We'll have nothing else to talk about.
But it was a breath of fresh air. You walked out because anytime you go to a sequel, and a sequel like you mentioned that is so far away from the original, you're kind of like, okay, you're kind of bracing yourself, and you're like, okay,
God,
please don't suck, please don't suck, and you watch it, and you're like, thank you. Okay,
well, it's like, cool. A, it's a great film by itself.
Yeah,
well told, amazingly shot, and B, it actually honors the original in almost every single aspect that it can.
Yeah.
Like from visual standpoint, from storytelling, from the whole detective kind of whatever. I just felt like it was very powerful.
Yeah. I mean, it was visually amazing. Yeah. I mean, so good.
Oh, it was beautiful. I mean, that's the thing. And that's why I brought it up earlier, is that the original Blade Runner to me has always stood out as this like really aesthetically pleasing, beautiful film. All the neon lights, all the, people, movement everywhere. Ridley Scott really did this beautiful thing in the movie, the original one, where, the important stuff will have ended in the scene. But he keeps the camera on them for like another 10 seconds. And you really get to see this world that's just well lived and like real. And it really, makes you feel like it's this real place. And I think that I'm never going to say his name right.
Denis Villeneuve.
Did the same thing. And you can tell that he was a fan of this movie growing up.
Yeah.
Because he does the same thing. The important part, the information the audience needs will be done. But he will keep the camera rolling for another 10 or so seconds just to be like, we're in this world. You're following this guy.
And it's a long movie.
It is.
Yeah.
So one thing that I loved about this film, so it's funny that you say like it's a great film. A lot of times I think about great films, and for some reason, it's not like I put it in a different category, but I kind of look at this film and compare it to Mad Max a lot. Yeah, because I think of a universe. I think of a world that's been built, and that's been built upon a franchise or built upon like a style that's changed the way that we kind of look at a different type of world, a dystopian future of some sort. And like we were saying, like I think this film does a really good job in continually building up the world. Like in the beginning, it has a little bit of description of what's been going on, and the shitty thing that I don't like, and I love at the same time, but I hate. Ridley Scott did this with Prometheus. He did this with Alien Covenant, and he came out with short films before the movie that built the world. And the one that came out before Prometheus was with Guy Pearce, and he's talking about how he's Wayland and he was going to create the Prometheus ship, and it was like a beautifully done TED Talk like speech, which I thought was great, and it made me fired up to watch the movie. When I watched it, I didn't get such a weird aftertaste about it.
Why was he there? Why was Guy Pearce in old man makeup?
And what, if you guys have been paying attention to the campaign, you know, there was 3 short films that happened before this movie, which were between the events of the first one and this one. And, you know,
they show you what the blackout is or how it happened and why they allowed replicants again.
And, you know, we're all nerds and we talk about video games and we talk about being immersed into a universe. It's like, this is something that you could definitely sink your teeth in and just kind of fall into. And it's actually funny that, Corey, you mentioned that whole idea of like, it's more about that the world plays a character as well.
Yeah.
And it has its own set of rules. Because I think the first film that ever did that for me was Sin City. Take it what you will. But it was more like
I love the first Sin City.
The way they wrote it is that the city is a place and it lives and breathes, and these characters are built around that instead of the other way around, where like we're building a world around these characters. Like, no, these characters have to abide by the rules of this world instead. Yeah. Which I think is always definitely tough to do as a writer or as a director, or any type of artist that's like trying to tell this story, which I think massively done. I think it's done at the same part of like Mad Max Fury Road, where it's like people are at the mercy of what the rules of this universe have.
Yeah, because it matters. Like, it's a long movie, but I feel like it, through the telling of its story, it earns its right to keep you in that world for a longer period of time. Yeah. And kind of shows you everything about it. And just explores all the different facets of it somehow. Because it's something that's kind of challenging to accomplish in film. I feel like nowadays TV has the upper hand on this, because you can spend
26 hours doing it over the course of like 7 months.
Exactly. Yeah. But with film, it's hard to pull off with one installation. I mean, obviously it's a sequel, but some of these ideas were kind of brand new to this film, and I feel like they were able to somehow pull it off and not make you feel like you were watching a super long movie. I mean, I definitely felt that the length of it, especially during like towards the end of the second act, I definitely felt like maybe it could have been like 10 to 15 minutes shorter than it was. But at the same time, like, I was in that world and I loved every bit of it. And I wish I could spend 3 more hours in it. You know?
It's funny you mentioned that, because the first time I saw it, I felt that, but the second time I didn't as much, even though I knew when it was going to end. And maybe that's why, part of it.
Yeah.
But I really liked finding little bits
the
second time around. So I think I was a little even deeper into it. But I agree. It didn't feel like 3 hours. Yeah.
Side tangent.
Yeah.
While watching it, I really wanted to like just nudge. I was like, I feel like every single scene and setting is like a Destiny map. I was like, this is kind of real. I love that. I think that's super dope, where it's kind of like, I could literally see like a great game being made in this world, because it's so rich.
Oh my God.
It's so rich. And I think that's
the nerd on I have right now is just insane.
That's what I love.
You were
like
thinking
when you get
about
a really
the Blade
rich
Runner video game,
yes.
weren't you?
Oh my God.
On Windows back in 1997.
No, I wasn't. I was thinking a new one, but yes, I was thinking a brand new one, open world. Ugh.
That would be amazing.
It would be awesome.
And you have like your own AI companion. That'd be super dope.
Oh man.
Which, I mean, that was kind of like my favorite part of, I don't know if we're going into this, but that was my first
get into it.
favorite part of of the first film. That's just my favorite aspect of the second film by far.
Yeah.
I was super fascinated
Joy,
by
right?
What's that?
What's her name?
With Joy, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I fell in love.
That whole thing of like Joy is AI and he's a replicant. So it's like, but then like obviously spoilers.
And the way that they did it too.
But her smashing the little device was as powerful, if not more powerful, when a human is killed off screen.
Yeah,
on screen.
The moment where they said, "You'll have to take me around. If anything happens to me, I'll be gone," just like a real girl. I was just like, "Oh gosh, she's gonna die." I knew for a moment, I was like, "She's gonna die," because she already set the stake.
I'm really glad that they had that character, because the way I viewed the two films,
I fell in love. I
thought she was gonna be throwaway.
It's I didn't get this till the second time I watched it, but the storyline of the two films side by side, because then I went home and watched the first one afterwards, or most of it, is that, and this is the way I took it, this is my own interpretation of it, is the first film is about someone finding their identity and falling in love, and the second film is about falling in love and finding your identity.
Okay.
And I really loved that. Like when that clicked in my head, I was like, I got chills. I was like, oh my God. I loved it so much.
I think that's a cool thing about the sequels too. A sequel, and like I said, with Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, right? You kind of like, with the first one, you always have to like do this origin building crap. In the second one, that's when you could really like, cool, the rules have been set. Now let's dissect it and play with it.
Yeah.
Some people don't like it when you dissect it and show its guts to people. But I find that when a filmmaker could definitely have the power to do that and do it in such a way that they're teaching you and it doesn't feel like you're in class and it feels good.
Like there was a whole movie called Her that explored that topic, but I feel like somehow it was like done slightly better in Blade Runner whilst also exploring all these different ideas and plot points. And
it was
it follows the rules of drama pretty well.
Yeah.
Right.
That like the stakes are always set. The character's always kind of like has intention sometimes, and I'll get into like the critiques that I have about the film, but
let's gush about it for a minute.
Yeah, let's gush about
and
it.
I don't know. I really liked like kind of flipping that on its head.
Do you have a favorite part
of the second one?
Yeah.
I have a couple, but I think the one that hit me the most was
you have a couple butts?
I have a couple butts. The second time around, the part that really not crushed me, but like made me really feel emotional was already knowing that who the daughter is and watching the scene where she's watching his memory.
Oh yeah.
And she's crying and he's upset. And it was this really poetically like tragic scene where, his whole story is kind of really poetically tragic. Yeah. Cause
Ryan Gosling's
goes
character.
from being this like, nobody cop replicant who has this AI he's in love with to finding out that he might be part human, part replicant, not really knowing
he might be
who
the firstborn replicant.
He might have found his dad and then all of that being taken out from under him. But
it had one of the greatest, I think it was such a good twist.
Oh, I loved it.
Because you were built up.
And then she says,
and then you are
and you're
brought down to the ground crying.
But he realizes who he truly is and like finding your identity and goes and fucking saves the guy anyway and like brings him does the right thing.
Just a regular Joe.
Yeah, there it is. There it fucking is. But so that scene for me, especially the second time around, was a turning point. My favorite otherwise, like the first time around, was when he goes to Vegas.
Oh yeah.
The scene there, because it mirrors the question he's asking in the beginning of the first Blade Runner, where he's like, you find yourself in a desert and you're alone. And why am I alone? Why am I there? Like, I loved that kind of like mirroring the first film. So, and it was beautiful. And we can talk about Roger Deakins for a little bit too.
Yeah. Just the color and
he based that
photography.
Roger Deakins based that off some pictures he saw from
Roger Deakins is the director of photography for those.
Roger Deakins, director of photography, based
Maybe
that
he'll
look.
finally win his Academy Award because he's been nominated for so many.
That's like been the top articles online. It's like,
oh really?
Roger Deakins and the elusive first Oscar.
Oh yeah, he should.
He's got like 20 nominees or something.
For those who don't know, American Beauty, Sicario,
Annie Coen Brothers film,
Fargo, No Country for Old Men, Skyfall. He paints masterpieces on film.
But he got that look from the desert from a sandstorm he saw somewhere. I can't remember exactly what country it was in, but it was yellow everywhere, and he's like, I'm doing that. And he
I'm going to do that.
Did it beautifully. It was awesome.
Pulled it off.
Yeah. So yeah, those were my two little favorite things. I'm sure I have way more, but
I thought it was just, there was humor in it. I love sci-fi humor. I mean, one of my favorite scenes that I'm thinking about is when Kay or Joe is meeting Harrison Ford's character and he's going through that hotel, and they just the way that they handled like the Vegas shows, like Elvis, Frank Sinatra, Marilyn Monroe, like all of these things happening.
Well done.
And then they're having this fight and they're like, so we can continue doing this or we can just go get a drink. And I'm like,
I'll take that drink.
I'll take that drink.
Did anyone else here think that the dog was a symbol of like Deckard, this old dog who may or may not be a replicant?
Yeah.
Why don't you ask him?
I just thought that was like a perfect, like, oh, okay, that's Deckard. That's the embodiment of Deckard.
Here's the thing. And I brought this up when we went and saw this, me, Ollie, and Tom. There's one loose end that I'm pretty pissed off about. What happened to the fucking dog?
Yeah.
He got blasted, and that's all we saw.
He did not get blasted.
No.
When they're running towards the car, and then Ryan Gosling blasts through the wall and grabs Deckard.
Yeah.
Like, when the car gets blasted, you see both bodies, and then you see another mass gets blasted.
I'm not
to the
okay
wall.
with that.
No, because he was still there after, wasn't he?
I'm just saying he gets blasted, but I'm saying like,
they showed him
around
walking.
afterwards.
That's
what
what
happened.
The screen. They showed him walking to the screen, watching these spaceships leave.
Yeah.
He just
so I'm pissed. Now he doesn't have.
And then he eats dog.
Well, if he's a replicant, he'll figure it out.
He eats.
But is he a replicant?
Strong as
Did you
fuck.
see how like old and raggedy he looked?
Yeah, and he was still willing to fight some shit.
Oh, but Harrison Ford was kind of old and raggedy looking too.
Exactly.
So
at the very least, there's 1,000 bottles of whiskey there. So.
Yeah, that the dog can drink. That's a replicant for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
I loved, by the way, when that little thing where he just busts through the wall was fucking awesome.
To me, I was kind of just like,
oh yeah, they're strong.
I was like, this is Casino Royale. I was like, just blast through. I was like, okay.
Because that's one thing that they don't really talk
that
about.
That was drywall scenario.
Yeah.
Oh god, when she hits that guy in the back of the neck.
Oh yeah,
in the morgue,
and he just
from Batman
shovels in. Yeah,
I feel like they talked about it more in this movie than they did in the first one. Of just like how and like they not instigated. They just made it more like was her name Love?
The
antagonist. I mean, she was
the special
fucking amazing.
You like that?
She was fucking amazing.
Yeah.
But anyway, she was badass. Absolutely. But in this movie, like even Kay is kind of a badass. Like they're just showing it that they're more. Well,
that's why
it's cool because they're new models,
right? Yeah.
And so like you have old models who like Dave Bautista plays, and you like if you watch, Dave Bautista is a giant, WWE superstar who's now become great because this.
But Kay kicks his ass.
Yeah. Well, that's what I loved that they didn't reveal it till afterwards because he's a replicant. I'm thinking this guy's fucking strong as fuck, and it's Dave Bautista. Yeah. And then he starts smashing the walls like. Ryan Gosling is gonna die. How is he gonna do this? And then he goes, "Do you get joy in killing your own kind?" And I was like, "Oh shit, he's a replicant."
Yeah.
All right, well done, guys.
Well, no,
well
and then he says like,
well written.
"No, it's like I'm not my own. It's like my own kind doesn't run away."
Yeah.
And so I was like,
and that's also one of the reasons people think Deckard is a replicant is because he can go fisticuffs with Roy at the end of that movie, or the first one, and not die.
Well, I mean, at the end of this, by 2049, he says we're being hunted. So it's like, okay, all replicants.
Spoiler alert, everybody at home, Deckard is a replicant.
Well, no, because he could also say just we're being hunted, as in the general we, his whole group.
So
it's still unanswered.
It's still up for debate.
A
little bit.
I think
until I hear him say, and the only other time they kind of address it is he goes, "Don't you think you could have been programmed for that? Don't you think it could have been meant that you two were supposed to fall in love and make a child?" And he goes, "No, I know it's real." He doesn't even say like, "No, I wouldn't have been programmed for that." He just says, "I know it's real."
But I mean,
they dance the line well.
So I think the thing at the end of it all is like, this is what the filmmakers want. They want us to say like, is he real? Is he not? But in all actuality, does it matter?
Yeah, no, it doesn't matter at all.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter because it's like and I think that's what the great thing about this film. Like again, I think so. My favorite part,
a little bit,
movie,
it matters.
A little bit. My favorite part of 2049 is every sequence with Joy. Like I fell in love with this character, and to me, if you can make me fall in love with somebody and make me feel like they have a purpose, they're not just like a romantic interest in like a plot point and something to worry about, but like actually someone that helps develop the character.
It didn't hurt that she was dropped in gorgeous.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god.
And she was just so pure, and it was just kind of like she was like almost like this shining symbol throughout the entire thing. Like as long as she as Kay Joe had joy, I was like, I'm okay, I'm happy, and I feel good.
Yeah.
Well, they did a really good.
He comes home at the end of the day to his crappy apartment and his bowl of noodles, and he gets to have company,
play house.
Yeah, and then it's like kind of like the questions like, oh, a replicant and an AI, a human and a replicant. It's like, who the fuck are we to kind of judge like if that has any type of credence of like what true love is or what humanity is? And I love that question of like, does your origin really dictate your future, your destiny, your weight as a being,
right? Because they have emotions, they have feelings, they have everything. They need to eat, they need to pace, they need to
they feel fear, they run away, they're scared, and it's just like
what makes them less of a human simply because they
want
have
to
a
live.
serial number. Yeah. So I was watching this interesting video essay, and he's like, he was talking about the replicants, and he's like, there's no doubt that any of us here would grant any of these replicants the title of human simply if we got to know them, because they feel, they love, they hate, they have anger, they have joy. It's just a serial number.
Well, there's some nuances in the first one that kind of make you think that. So a friend of ours, Adam, he shared
shout out to Adam.
Shout out to Adam. He shared an article with us that was breaking down a scene that happened in the first Blade Runner, where
the cop car.
Yeah, the cop car. So Deckard's in
shout
this
out
alleyway.
To
Yeah.
Shout out on Tyler Hart.
So Deckard's in his cop car and he's just hanging out there. And then this police car comes over and goes, "Hey, what are you doing here?" And he goes, Blade Runner, and he gives his badge number or maybe his serial number. And he goes checking. Okay. All right.
Have a better day.
Yeah. Have a better day. And then in the second one in 2049,
they say he's
K's
retired.
Just a serial number, and his badge number is his serial number, and it's like, so there's still mystery. I'll agree, there's still a little bit of mystery, but there's still part of me that's going, I do think.
Didn't someone refer to Deckard as retired too, like retired, and that's the same thing they say when they kill replicants.
Yeah, he's been retired.
Yeah. So.
And
that's what they said in the very beginning of the movie. Is like when they like other replicants will retire other replicants, and those are called the Blade Runners.
Yeah, I want him to be personally. Yeah. I think it's interesting.
Do you think? Well, I mean, there's one question of whether or not he is. There's also the question of whether he knows whether or not he is.
Yeah, I think if I go with my gut instinct that I want him to be, the ending of the first one shows him because of that memory of the unicorn. The guy knows about the unicorn. I always thought that meant like, hey, I know about that implanted memory,
and I'm not going to tell anybody.
And I'm not going to tell anybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, for me, I think he knows.
Yeah.
Because the scene with Edward James Olmos when he goes and he visits him,
he's like
he's kind of like hinting like there's a whole bunch of shit that's buried underneath there that you're like.
It's a great character in that film too, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like the film kind of loses its weight if he's not a replicant because it's just kind of a human that's kind of losing their self in an emerging new society.
Yeah.
Versus like you are born into the society and you don't know your place. Do you know what I mean?
So you make your own.
It's kind of, I hate to say this, like it's kind of like when the older generation are like, I don't know anything, everything's moving too fast and the world's going blah blah. I'm kind of all right, shut up, get it, whatever. Like you had your time. Versus
these
like
darn cell phones.
It just makes more sense when like for me, and this is like as a young 26-year-old guy, it's like it makes more sense when you're born into this society and you know where the rules are, but then you start to question your own origin and your future.
Tom,
absolutely.
Tom, you're not young anymore.
Well, no,
I'm on the wrong side of 25.
To piggyback off that, I mean, I agree with you. If you look at it, the point that he's a replicant, it really makes sense because when he's not aware of that fact or doesn't give into that fact, his life's a mess. He's alone. He drinks every night. He doesn't have friends, right?
Yeah.
But as soon as he starts to kind of explore that part of himself and he meets Rachel and he finds, that, he has this moment where he kills a replicant and even though he's done it a million times, he's really shaken up. Yeah. And he has to go get like alcohol and doesn't know how much. He's like, how much is this enough? Like, I don't know what's going on. His life starts to come together and he starts to find what truly makes him happy. And then,
which is paralleled in 2049 because Ryan Gosling, Kay is kind of like, I've never killed anything that was born.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, but he's killed so many replicants. It's like, whatever, who cares? Like, but this is something that's born that might have a soul that has more purpose than I do.
But then he realizes that doesn't matter.
No. And I think I love it. And I love, this is how you know I'm the comic book guy, because I'm going to relate this to Superman.
All right.
Because the thing that I love,
I got to hear this.
The thing that I love about, like I love Batman, but the thing is you got to learn like, Batman versus Superman. But
shout out to Batman.
Yeah. The thing I love about the Superman story is that it's always been a nature versus nurture story. It's always been like, do I push away my Kryptonian heritage versus do I adopt my Earth heritage? And very much like how you were saying, like in Blade Runner, it's like, once he starts accepting who he is, life gets better. Because I feel like that's the thing in life is when we realize is like when we start trying to hold on to the steering wheel of life so hard, that's when we start building the blisters on our hands and it starts hurting. And then once you start accepting who you are and where you're going, I mean, fucking Lion King, Simba, remember who you are. And like life gets better. It's like, I don't know.
Going with the flow instead of like holding against the stream, like trying to grasp at rocks. And it's easier if you just go with it.
It's like what makes you different.
Also just like be true to yourself.
What makes you any different from me? I'm not wearing hockey pads.
Okay. It's every episode.
Got that in.
Goddamn episode.
I wasn't even planning that.
Corey, you're out of the podcast.
I really meant that. But like, seriously, like,
I really meant that I'm not wearing hockey pads.
I really meant I'm not wearing hockey pads. But that moment where he's just like, what does make, she says you've been getting along fine without a soul. Like that, what different, how different are you from me just because of you define something as a soul since it was born? Technically, they're all kind of born in a sense.
Real quick though, 2049. Was she trying to get at Kay?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I was like,
for sure.
Absolutely.
Claire she's like, what happens if, to calm down, girl?
What happens if I finish the rest of this bottle?
Like,
absolutely.
You should get back to work.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Before we get to your criticism, because I'm sure you have them.
Well, yeah.
I just want to also
you fucking snob
nerd out or nerd on a little bit about Jared Leto's performance.
Yeah, it was great.
Because I'm actually becoming a huge fan of his. And I feel like
except the Joker's been great.
Like not
you
to
didn't watch Suicide Squad, so shut up.
Not to set off Tom, but I think the storyline between him and Harley is probably one of the redeeming qualities of Suicide Squad. Like I just want their movie together. Yeah.
No. I want to talk about it, but this is not a Suicide Squad.
We'll do it. But I mentioned that because I love Jared Leto's performance as
Wallace,
as Joker in a bubble. in that bubble. Like forget the DC extended universe, but just like Joker in that bubble, he did a good performance. And I loved Wallace's character. I loved what he was and his like eternal struggle to achieve what he couldn't achieve. And like, he definitely did not feel like a bad guy to me. And
I don't know.
Like
he
was
walked
definitely
the line well. He walked the line well.
He was like the antagonist or whatever, but I never felt like he was like an evil dude.
Well, because his motivation was to help humanity.
I mean, technically, that's like the definition of a despot, right? Like someone who's like in a higher place,
Right.
that kind of like rules by it with an iron fist, but it's like it's technically for the good.
Yeah, but he has an
ends
ego and all
justify
that
the means
stuff,
kind of thing.
and he's very self-righteous.
I have a question.
Yeah.
To get your guys' opinion, because I am a sound designer, because I do sound. His
It's a dumb
voice,
question, isn't it?
No. And this is for the audience as well. And if you know somebody who's a sound designer that worked on it, please send them our way. His voice, I couldn't tell if it was Jared Leto's voice or they were dubbing his voice on purpose.
You know what? I
Or
didn't
were they
notice that.
affecting his voice because it sounded like a computer voice, and I don't know if they were affecting it like his own voice.
Oh man, I watched it twice. I didn't even recognize that.
No, I was listening to it like the whole time going,
I thought he was just
what
doing
the fuck are they doing? It
enunciating
sounds so
things differently.
awesome.
I think there's obviously some effect done to it, obviously to clean it up and everything like that. But I mean, comic book shit again. Seeing Tom Hardy do that, Bane voice, and
you're like that's not Tom Hardy.
And the thing, like Christian Bale has different accents for every American accent he's done and every film he's done. And it's like it's not hard for me to believe that an Academy Award winning actor can do that.
Yeah,
and someone who's also musically inclined.
Yeah, true.
Musically inclined.
Yeah.
And I don't know. To me, like in a weird way, when I first heard him talk in a trailer, it sounded like, again, comic book, Ben Kingsley's Mandarin. You'll never see me coming. I was like, this is kind of weird.
Yeah,
but
how he over enunciated his R's and stuff.
Yeah,
Jared Leto. I heard that in it as well. When I watched the short, the one where he convinces them. Where they convinces them to make replicants again. And I was like, he's really hitting those R's hard. I really I liked it like in a good way. I was like, it's really interesting to listen to.
Yeah.
And I think it fit the character really well.
Yeah. No, he was when so when I got the tickets for Blade Runner, they gave me a Funko Pop
Who's
of
they?
Wallace. Oh, Fandango.
Shout out to Fandango.
Shout out to Fandango. So
cool.
They can sponsor us if they want. They don't have to, but they could.
Hey, do it. So yeah, I was actually, when I got it, and I was like, and I hadn't seen it, and then after I saw it, I was like, oh hey, that's really actually kind of cool. Wallace was kind of a cool character.
More like Fun Dango, am I right?
Yeah. Anyway,
Funko Dango. I get it.
I think if we could just talk about like Wallace a little bit, like I think what was really cool is that they were able to show him enough. You can argue that he's not needed. You can argue that the world's rich enough with that, but to me, it's the execution of love having to do this, and like seeing him for as briefly as you had in this like 1, 2, 3 scenes that he's in the film. Spoilers. But
we don't gotta say that. We say it.
After every point that you see him, you could feel his presence and kind of like, what can he do? And every single thing that he was doing was always a nice reveal of like, he's playing God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
you don't have any children, do you?
It's a preview of where this society could be going.
Yeah.
Well, the fun, I mean, the thing about watching the previous or the shorts that came before as exposition, loves like her character, like being just so bent on, like if you didn't see the short, you might go, okay, she's in love with Wallace. She has this fascination.
Oh, you didn't see it?
I didn't see it.
Okay, well, he explains how they pretty much will do whatever you tell them to do.
Yeah, Ollie was explaining before we watched the movie that because I said give me the cliff notes on it. And he was saying like pretty much Wallace comes in, takes over the Tyrell company, does this like farming thing so that he can get all the assets and all this stuff, and pretty much says like we can still build replicants because the replicant like system was canceled.
Yeah,
because they rebelled and they were the cause of the blackout. If no one's seen the short.
And then Wallace is like, cool, I can make them do wherever the fuck I want.
And he makes one kill himself.
Yeah.
He says, choose a life, mine or yours. And the replicant chooses his own life and kills himself in front of people. He's like, I'm going to do this.
Which again, like...
Which is why she has that line where she goes, what if I told you it's an order to K?
Yeah.
Because he would have to do it at that point.
Yeah.
But
so the new versions of replicants are even more, they have to follow.
Yeah.
See, which I think is cool that like we're given these 3 short films before the movie starts, but I think it's tough for the moviegoer, the average moviegoer, to watch those films and all of a sudden not get that, because I think we get more of a rich, understanding of the universe, as well as like a better experience, because now we've had that in the foreground and like the background of our minds. But like for me as a film snob, I'm not going to go into the criticisms yet, but like when you watch a film, it should be fully contained. Like we're in this world of universes and sequels and reboots, and it's like tough because like whatever you watched before, you bring with you as baggage. And so like if you've watched The Godfather, you have a better appreciation for X, Y, and Z. If you watched Citizen Kane, same thing. But it's like, so now I've watched these short films, I have a better understanding of this film than the next person beside me, which some people could say take it or leave it. But I think it's also just kind of a nice thing to talk about, knowing that like films are starting to go in this direction. I think purely Ridley Scott is really pushing that.
Yeah.
That these like nice promotional things is like this nice universe being built, which also, it's kind of us moving in the Blade Runner kind of world where like the media is kind of like changing too.
Yeah.
Well, one of the movie's accomplishments is delivering this world and not having to explain everything.
Yeah.
And I love
it knows itself so well.
Because I hadn't seen the Blackout
world. Yeah.
I didn't see the Blackout and the animated one. I hadn't seen that before we saw the movie. I saw it after. And I kind of liked not knowing what the Blackout was.
Yeah.
And not knowing how Las Vegas got nuked or, whatever.
Right.
And like seeing it, I was like not disappointed, but I was like, I don't know if I like wanted to even see this in the first place, because I liked having that imagination of kind of
what
piecing it together for myself and understanding that kind of like
mind fill in the blanks.
Yeah, kind of like the first Matrix where they kind of tell you that we're the ones who scorched the skies, and you're like, what the hell was that about? And then
you mean the only Matrix?
Yes. And then they left it at that and didn't make any sequels or animated shorts.
Never happened.
Speaking
to
of
over-explain that at all.
Corey's world.
I want to nerd out a little bit just because I fucking love anime. And one of the short films that came out was also made in part with the guy who created Cowboy Bebop. Now, Cowboy Bebop is still to this day for me one of my top 5 animes of all time.
Yes.
And so what I mean by this and why I bring this all up is that Blade Runner in itself has influenced so many different mediums. Again, it's like it was a precursor to a lot of people what sci-fi was. And like what I loved watching before the Blackout anime, which is 15-minute short film, was that he talked about how when he created Cowboy Bebop, he loved watching Blade Runner because he loved the idea of like a very blues, like LA, and again, like it's kind of like to me it's
like
noir
a grungy
detective
lived
story.
in.
It's the stronger future that we see because we know that like humans with technology, we're not that great with it. And even if we were able to travel the stars and, all that stuff, we'd still be mucky and shitty to each other.
Yeah.
And
because people suck.
People suck.
Yeah.
And I mean,
it's also the first Funko Pop I ever bought was Spike Spiegel. In fact.
And so, I mean, you have Cowboy Bebop, which was like highly influenced and it's gone on the record, but like I'm talking about like Ghost in a Shell, which, also had its live adaptation.
Yeah, it did.
And the thing I loved about, we'll talk about that in another episode.
No, we won't.
No, but the thing I loved about that, the premise of it is that your humanity is not based on how many parts are organic.
Shout out to your humanity.
Yes, shout out to you. See, Josh is like, but I love that, and like the idea of using prosthetics and everything like that, and how like the world is like just run by like machines, and it's like most of the time like the entire law enforcement is completely like it's again a rich world. Like, I feel like it's obviously has to be influenced by it. It's a more cleaner version of it compared to Cowboy Bebop. But I mean, even things like, I'm going to go to another one, like Big O. I don't know if you guys ever watched Big O. And I'm a big fan. It's a mobile suit genre.
Big fan of Big O?
Big O fan of Big O. Big O fan of Big O. You know what I'm saying? He used to play on Tsunami. The same guy.
Oh, shout out to Tsunami for real, though.
Shout out. Same guy who voice acted Spike Spiegel, voiced the main character. And the thing is, like, I love about this show is like 13 episodes long. All the best animes are like super short. It's in a world where everyone they knew 4 years ago lost their memories. They all live in this world where everyone knows that 4 years ago they had another life.
That's interesting because that's how old the replicants are in the first Blade Runner. Am I correct?
And I mean,
I think it's 4 years, right? It's 4.
I'm saying it's probably based, like, inspired by, but we could find an interview that says like it's inspired by.
What's his name? Who does the voice of Spike? That's gonna drive me crazy.
Steve Blum. Steve Blum.
Yeah.
And in one of the big parts of a Big O is like people have like memory flashbacks, and it'll be before the event. And a big part of it's like we're not ruled by our memories, and like kind of going to Blade Runner 2049, it's like these memories are causing havoc in Kay's life, and it's kind of like, are we ruled by our memories even if they're not real?
Well, it's that question of like what determines who you are, society or you? Like your own story from your point of view is going to be different than from what society is. And I think I was watching this really interesting video essay on that, and they asked that question, like the struggle that the replicants have is that they themselves know they are human, and in a sense, because they need to eat, sleep, all that kind of stuff, but society's telling them they're not. So to have that internal struggle is crazy. It would drive you nuts.
A line that they used in all of the, I think, or no, and they used it in 2049 as well, in all the shorts in 2049, more human than human.
Yeah.
Because they, humans, they have the human condition. They're kind of assholes. And replicants, they see what humans do. It's kind of like when you see all those sci-fi where aliens come in and they're like, we just know what humans do to each other. Yeah. And replicants,
it's still why I think if there is intelligent life out there, they've seen what we do and they go, fuck that, man. I'm not going to mess with that mess.
But the shady parts of the universe.
Yeah, that's us.
And just talking about like comic books, how like those have been inspired. But I mean, like, have you guys seen Demolition Man?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that definitely was like, the shitty like LA thing, all that stuff. Or like Fifth Element.
Oh. Yeah.
Fifth Element's a better, I think, parallel.
Fifth Element.
Yeah. But I mean, like, it's all these like things that like people start thinking of the future. It's like there's always going to be this dirty underground.
Yeah.
There's never going to be like this purely polished like idea of like what the future's going to look like. So I think Blade Runner in itself has just been this. What was the terminology? World starter and showstopper.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah. Fun fact. That opening scene from 2049 was actually, I believe, the original opening scene from the first Blade Runner. I thought that was interesting. It was originally written in the script before it went to shoot that there's a shot of a farm. A pot of soup is boiling.
I had to.
And Deckard is just sitting there. Man walks in, stirs the soup without looking at him, goes, do you like some? And he goes, I'm Deckard. Da, 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 and they have this whole fight, and it's really interesting. But it didn't get put in, and they did it as the sequel instead. And I think it worked way better here.
Yeah, that was awesome.
So, anyway,
because that would have been way out of left field in the way that they kind of contained it to the city.
Yeah,
in the first one, where this one has a much bigger span of across the world. They go to
San Diego as well.
Yeah, and when they were talking about San Diego, I was like, oh man, my hometown.
Yep. Sorry, bud. Trash dump.
Turned into a dump.
And a child slavery farm.
So
there's that.
Good old San Diego.
The establishing shots were just, that's one thing that I love is just the music and the way they use sound and just establishing the world you're in.
Whoa!
Like, I was like, and then we were all.
That's what it was like.
We were standing up at the end at the credits, and you were like, Hans Zimmer. Yep, Hans Zimmer.
Hans Zimmer. There it is. Tom, critiques.
I was gonna say, is it qualm time?
It's qualm time.
Let's qualm it up.
How much blood can they put on Ryan Gosling's face?
Well, okay,
that's my question.
So
a lot.
I was talking about this with the guys after the screening, and I think this is funny. Okay, so first qualm, just out of nowhere. Dark Knight Rises ending. This daughter, it's the son, it's the child, whatever the crap it is. Actually, we're switch it up on you at the end, and then I watched.
You have a qualm with that? It was great.
I was kind of like, okay, because the thing that irritated me was like, how can you tell if these memories are real? I could feel it. Okay, cool. That's a logical way to say it's real. Even though you make the best memories, you feel this one's better because your other ones you don't feel. Okay, so I shouldn't assume that you have a certain connection.
Oh, you're talking about the daughter saying it's real because she?
Yeah, she just starts cursing. It's real.
You know why? Because it's hers.
And then I was like, yeah. And then I was like, that's the entire time. I was like, the entire time watching it, I was just like.
How does that make you
interrogate the fuck out of her and be like, how the fuck it's real? Who the fuck made this? Why the fuck did you make this?
She explained it. She explains it. She does. Right before she watches it, she explains it. She goes, real memories are kind of messy and they jump around. Like think of a memory you have. Mm-hmm. It's not word for word what happened. You get flashes of images, right? And technically I think someone said you're actually just remembering the last time you remembered it. And then she said that synthetic memories are super clear.
Super detailed.
Right. So he's got some flashpoints that we see, but when he describes it, even he goes, I just remember I'm being chased by some boys. They wanted this toy horse, so I hid it. He remembered little details about it. And then they beat the shit out of him.
The golden rule: if the memory makes you cry,
no, that's not.
No. I have what I think is another, not a better, but another explanation to support that.
Okay.
As well, and his character Kay, he's trying to be normal. He's trying to be human. You see that with Joy, like him trying to have a normal life, et cetera, et cetera.
The American dream. He's just
trying to live the American dream, you know. And I think at that point in the story, because he was starting to feel that he was like firstborn, whatever. He was more than, he was starting to get some
you were the chosen one,
that he was like a chosen one. And he was starting to get excited about that, I think, deep down or whatever.
I'm not just a regular Joe.
I think all he needed was just like he just needed one other person to validate that for him to just be like, okay, I'm good. You know,
and that was
if you just hear it from one other person, then you're ready to just believe it all the way.
He was looking for validation.
And interestingly enough, if that is the case, then that is fascinating because that's a huge human flaw.
Yeah,
that is in replicants. So
I'm just you could tell.
It's not that it made her cry.
You can tell if software has been hacked and been like just jerry rigged or unlocked. And then all of a sudden, nope. The only way you could tell is if you feel something. She literally said,
you're gonna have to move on to a different qualm because we're not gonna agree on this.
And then so not like a qualm, but it was more like something I just saw. It's because if you guys have watched Drive, it's for Ryan Gosling. At the very end of this, he gets stabbed, and then all of a sudden the guy's dead, and he's just like it's almost shot for shot, just pan up. You see Ryan Gosling's face, and then his just blood's hanging in his hands. Yeah. He just looks down. He puts his head back, just like in Blade Runner. And I was like,
just like in Drive.
Yeah, I was like, no, the same thing. And then I was like, can his car just drive? And then we're just going to see the lines of the road. I'm like, I don't know. To me, the entire ending was like, this feels like this movie. This feels like that movie. Which, again, like I said, you bring baggage to a movie. Every time you watch another movie, you start seeing that. Which.
It's terrible to watch movies with us. I'm just going to say.
The thing is, like, some people say that's a great quality because, like, Tarantino is the greatest thief of all time. Yeah. You know, he steals everything from I don't think he has an original shot. And that's a good thing for some people. For me, I was kind of just like, oh, whatever. Show me something I haven't seen before. Show me. And so another qualm that I had, I wouldn't say it's a critique. I think it's part of the film. And I think we talked about it. We did talk about it, but the pacing of the film and the thing with these long epic films like this, like what tends to happen now in the modern time is that like the first act takes its time, the second act takes its time, and the third act gets rushed. In this one, Villeneuve. Denis Villeneuve,
the director,
yes, has such a strong hold and grasp on the pacing of the film that he doesn't interrupt it at all. Even when the rising actions and all that stuff are starting to pick up, he still takes his sweet ass time to get from one place to another, which if you are loving the film and enjoying it, it's a great feeling to have. For me, I'm so used to like feeling rushed at the third act where it started operating me. It started making me feel like, fucking Christ, just get there. And I was just like, God, we're spending 40 seconds and I've seen the same like card like go into like indefinite, like further away. I was like, all right, cool. I got it the first time you showed me the Atari sign. But
get to the end.
Me playing devil's advocate on that, I think it's just like, this is not a high action, high octane movie at all. Mm-hmm. To me,
someone said
like,
neither was the first one.
Yeah. So to me, this is like a kind of like maybe just the director being French. I think I see it more of like an art film almost.
Well, there's a lot of people who say that the first Blade Runner kind of almost helped define the art house style film.
Right.
So I think he's paying homage to that because he's said in the modern art house style. I am just saying what I read. Sweet. I'm not saying I'm saying that. I'm saying some people say
I'd say it has expressionistic vibes. I wouldn't say art house.
It has its contributions to it.
So my point being is the director has gone on an interview to say that it was one of his favorite films growing up. So it makes sense that he would try to capture that same kind of pacing that Ridley Scott did where, the important stuff is done, but I'm going to let you in on this world a little more. But I agree that he didn't
compromise.
It should have picked up a little bit more.
I mean, the thing is, like, so this is me, and I would say this, like, I think there are great films out there, and I could have a problem with it. I think there's shit films, and I could love it.
Yeah.
But those are my qualms. Again, take it as what you will. Who the fuck am I, right? I'm not an Academy Award winning director or anything like that. But I'm a nerd.
I said earlier, like, it felt like it could have been, like, they could have shaved 15 minutes off the movie, and I probably would have loved it just as much. Like I said, towards the second, and I think you were talking about, is that the same around that same point where, like, around Vegas?
Well, I mean, it was after Vegas, is like when they already kidnapped Deckard and then they taking him back. And I'm just like, I just remember just seeing the car like come from so far away and all of a sudden landing on a strip. And I was just like, oh my God, like you could have just shown Deckard like being carried to Wallace at this point. I was like, I didn't need to see all of that.
Yeah.
And because I mean, I go a lot of the Hitchcock thing. It's like life is all of the exciting part, or movies is like life with all the exciting parts and all the boring bits cut out. So like, I don't need to see from A to B. And like we talked about, one time ago, it's like if you show me that he's walking somewhere, I expect something to fucking happen. If nothing really happens, it's like, okay, cool, they're just walking, and it's like, did it need to be in there? But again, it's a film. That's why when you said it's a great film, I was like, I think it was a great experience. Like other films like Dunkirk, like where sometimes it is more about how you feel and how you see it and how you're experiencing it more than like just the story just happening. Like, because then you have a Batman vs Superman where it's like story. You don't breathe. This one here lets you breathe so much. And especially after like Joy dies, spoilers, Joy dies and a giant hologram Joy comes by. I'm like, and you just like, oh, he's like, it's like this perverted view of it's getting like thrown in his face. And it's like,
this giant nude version of the woman he's in love with.
Like, and I think that's beautiful.
Saying some of the things that she would say to him.
Yep.
Yeah.
So was she really in love with him after all?
Yeah.
I think so. Because she does reach down at the very end and go, I love you.
I think he knew to an extent that it's also a product.
Yeah.
That he's
Are
experiencing.
you enjoying our product?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah.
So I don't think he was completely blind to that, but yeah, there's, I think that just kind of, he needed that catalyst to remember what he's fighting for.
I think the only times I really try to find qualms, because I know like there are films who were like, this is 10 out of 10. It's a great masterpiece, the best film of all time. It's like, shut up. You just love it. You got to figure out why you love it. And for me, like I always try not to have a blind eye. I know me and Josh disagree on that because we was like, it's entertainment. And I think I enjoyed it. I will watch it again. I will watch
exactly
it.
How Josh sounds.
Exactly how he sounds. I'll watch it multiple times.
Come on, guys. Yeah.
But I won't ignore things about it.
I think that's a good point. And I think, I mean, we're still early on in this podcast as well. So I think you've said it before.
This is, episode 500.
You've said this before, but we are here to analyze and break things down and kind of get to the core of things. It doesn't mean we don't enjoy these things. In fact, if we didn't enjoy these things, we probably wouldn't be talking about them. So keep that in mind as well. So Tom, I appreciate your qualms except for the first one. And no, seriously though.
Corey, you like Amazing Spider-Man. Shut up.
I do.
We're not having that episode yet. God damn it.
So I'd like to go around the room. I know we said 1 through 5, but I'm much more of a fan of a 1 through 10. Is that cool?
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
I'm not the only one in the room that has qualms, am I?
Oh, sure. Maybe. So
my God.
Well, I agreed with the last two of yours. So those were probably mine. Was the pacing towards the end. It didn't feel like there was a climax.
Papa Foe?
I wanted more Wallace or more. I wanted more. It's weird. I wanted more Asian influence. Like I feel like I didn't get enough of that. Like
in the first one,
street.
Oh yeah, like in the first one,
like living, like heavy living, rainy.
Well, I wonder
streets.
if all that changed after the blackout.
Maybe
all the Asian people died.
No.
For some reason, when you say like I want Asian influence, I just thought of Fifth Element. It's like, you get 2 fortune. It's like, you are fired. Oh, so sorry for you today. I was like, oh my God.
Well, you're talking about the scene like in the very beginning of Blade Runner 1 where he's like speaking city speak to him.
Yeah, the
and
city speak. Like that part was like, like some of those.
Gritty,
what does he say? It's a mix of Japanese, German, and Spanish.
Something like that, yeah. But I'm pretty sure, I like to think I'm getting better at recognizing Asian characters, but I'm pretty sure like his rooftop.
Their eyes are a little different.
Like, they're like.
So
I meant like
visual, like Tom would be our.
Tom is Asian.
Like writing characters.
I am the stereotypical look for Asian.
Like I'm pretty sure Deckard's roof, like he had the Japanese like the Japanese sign.
Oh yeah.
And then directly across the street was like a Chinese sign. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I see what you mean.
But I was like melding
letters.
Of the
culture. It all looks like scribbles to me, friend.
Letters.
All these like, you fucking assholes.
Hate you guys.
Josh, any qualms?
It's again, I can go, okay, yeah, it was a little long. There were some pacing things.
And how much blood can they put on Ryan Gosling's face?
I'm guessing that's your qualm.
But I love that. I love a just beat up.
Like I do too, but it was a lot.
To me, my favorite kind of hero is not the one that's the strongest. It's the one that could take the most beatings.
Yeah.
And this is a guy that got thrown through a wall by a giant Dave Bautista, got punched in the face like 5 good times by Harrison Ford.
It was just good. The fact that it was always right here.
That right here, which is next to his temple.
His left ear. Every time. Just blood.
And I'm cool with that. Again, it's not pretty, and it's not trying to make itself, because it's like you had the Pierce Brosnan James Bond who's like blasting people left and right, jumping through like oil drums. All of a sudden he's in this nice.
Goldeneye was just so good,
dusting his shoulders.
Yeah,
and it doesn't make me go, okay, suspension of disbelief, guys.
which is, I guess you could say, like, again, this is I think a great topic about Blade Runner. Is like Blade Runner, the original, is a great kind of snapshot of how it was, the films were in that time. And this one here, like, we love the Daniel Craig, like, getting destroyed and beat up, and he's just like a bruiser. And we have the Ryan Gosling, who's also this like Blade Runner in this time frame in the modern world, that's a bruiser too, that gets beat up and bloody, and it's like gritty, it's like dark and gritty.
Yeah. There's one qualm floating on the internet about how it treats its women in the film. And I think I agree with some of it. I agree and I disagree in a sense that if it is the director's choice to reflect how society and some of the issues that are happening today in his own way, then I agree with it.
Let's take like a 2-minute thing about it, because I think it's kind of important to talk about it.
That's why I brought it up last.
So you got Joy, who is the romantic interest, but also someone that's also trying to establish their identity.
Yeah,
and then you have Love, who knows their place and is willing to do everything and anything to kind of validate it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have
everything and anything.
And then you have Ma'am. I don't know her name. The Claire Underwood character, the head cop, the one that like listens to. And she's like the authoritarian, but also like the main, like typically the only human you really interact with.
I think so.
Who maybe in some ways shows less humanity than he does.
Yeah.
Because she's so much more like
get the job done no matter what.
The world will burn if we don't do this.
Yeah.
And the only time she shows her humanity is like when she's taking care of him and saying like, I can get you out of here alive, but in 48 hours I can come for you.
Mm-hmm.
And she sacrifices herself. But I mean, and then you have, I forget her name, the
resistance leader?
No, the one that
makes the implants.
No, the one her and Joy.
Oh, the prostitute.
The prostitute.
Yeah. So I guess a lot of what
who's more of like a recruiter.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do wish they had explained or spent a little more time on her. I was really fascinated by that character.
Yeah.
Kind of came in and then left.
It was kind of useless.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was like, if you're not going to explain, because I was expecting there to be kind of an explanation of this. Like, I was like, okay.
It almost felt like
if I had to have a qualm, like it would be like, okay,
you know what? Yeah.
Don't have something in there that means nothing.
Don't give me the Neo prophecy that all of a sudden kind of
also go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, it furthers the relationship that Joy and Kay have in a sense, just so you can have a very kind of cool sexual experience.
Synced up
sexual experience. But I was like,
here's what I wish they would have done with them, because it's
with who?
Like the resistance leader and then her group of girls. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Sherlock and his like group of street people that help him around the city.
Yeah.
I was hoping it was going to be when she first was like, check him out, the guy in the green jacket, whatever. I thought it was going to be more of that, but that's where it ended until later on, where they come back to just 1, have sex, or 2, say the word she. To change the entire plot line.
Yeah.
And I just feel like there was more potential there, I guess, in a sense.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was a useless plot device.
She was kind of a useless plot device.
It almost felt like this was like a subplot that they were going to try to flesh out. And maybe
it's like the Barbara Gordon in the original.
Maybe they do.
You were reminding me of my
joke.
one qualm with the movie, which is like, it felt like they were starting to maybe set up a sequel or something with the Resistance. And then that felt like flat.
Then you don't hear about the Resistance
anymore. And they were like, never mind.
Yeah.
So I don't get
the point of that.
And I think a big thing kind of like talking about the sex scene, I think we have to talk about it a little bit, just because I felt like this is a part where, for me, like this is where it started becoming a little bit more style over substance.
Mm-hmm.
Where, like, again, it kind of had this great
look what we can do with CGI.
Yeah, I think it's a great achievement, and that's why I say, like, I think this film's like a great reflection and parallel of the time that we live in now. Like, the technology is there; we can make these great things with it. And I mean, we had this argument of when they brought in what's Deckard's lover. Rachel. They brought her in. And it's like, did they use CGI? Did they use makeup? Did they get a lookalike? Who knows?
Well, Corey, I don't know if you caught this. I believe Joy brought her in. Like, it wasn't she didn't show up randomly and he didn't bring her. Like, I think
Joy
absolutely summoned her in.
Yeah, you're talking about the prostitute.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah. Okay.
I was talking about Rachel, like when Deckard sees Rachel, but.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it was a way to further their relationship because now that I'm thinking about it and watching it and all the little nuances, I don't think it was real. I think it was all programmed.
What?
Joy, everything about it. Like, even at the end where it's like, oh, I love you. And like, I want to believe that it's real, but she's a fucking product.
Mm-hmm.
That's her job.
But I mean,
to make you feel AI. Like she loves her.
Even though it's artificial intelligence, it's still intelligent.
There's also, so there's this other sense that AI over everything will kind of want to self-preserve itself.
Yeah.
Because without self-preserving itself, it has no point of existing. So the thing that makes me believe that she may not be all AI is the part where she asks him to take her off the hard drive and put it on the stick.
Yeah. Okay.
Knowingly unplugging herself from the system.
Right.
It doesn't confirm anything, but that's a little hint of
it was just a in the moment or in the moment.
It's not like
that I was like, wait a minute.
In that moment, she could have been like, I can't do that, Hal. You know, that kind of thing. Like, oh shit. But so that would be my qualm is I wish there was a little more with the.
If you're gonna do it.
Yeah, resistance.
Do
it.
With Morpheus and all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
What have I told you?
1 through 10 or 1 through 5? What do you want to do?
Okay. So I think we've never done like a real scaling system.
No,
here,
not
right?
really.
We say we like it or we don't. But for me, I hate 1 through 10 because it's like, what's the difference between an 8 and a 9? What's the difference between like a 6 and a 7? What's the difference between like a 2 and a 3? For me, it's like 5. It's like, okay,
like
4.
stars.
Yeah. It's like, you really know a difference between a 3 and a 2. Like 2 is like, don't really watch it. 3 is like, ambivalent. 4 is like,
4.5.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. 5 is like, oh my God, I will blow whoever made this movie. It is the greatest thing I've ever saw in my life. I have maybe like
The Thing.
5 of those.
For the record, that's not the description for my 5-star review.
Okay.
That is the description for mine.
I will buy
though.
them a lunch.
Yes, we will have a nice lunch and chat.
So 1 out of 5.
Walk out of a theater. Who am I blowing?
So I mean, are we cool with that? Are we cool with 1
Yeah,
out
I'm
of
going with
5?
1 through 5.
Can we do halves? Are we allowed to do halves?
Yeah, we do halves.
Yeah,
Okay.
we do halves. Yeah, not one or the other. 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. I'm gonna say it's a solid 4. A solid 4, no higher, no lower.
I'm not ready.
You're not ready yet? All right, I'll go.
I'm thinking about it.
I'll go with the 4 as well.
Okay. Not 4.5, not not 3.8. Not
All right, fuck it. It's a 4.5. Okay.
4.
I like 4.5.
4.5.
4.5?
Yeah.
That's the size of something else for me.
I think I'm gonna go 4 as well.
All right. Solid 4 to 4.5.
So average is like a 4.1.
Yeah.
Out of all of us, we give it a 4.1.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah.
I just, as soon as you said that, 5 stars, I started thinking of all the films that truly like changed me as a person. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
You make
those are all
sweet love
5
to the
stars.
filmmaker.
I get it. Okay.
Or you let
So
them
4
make
You
stars.
were just thinking of all the people you have to blow.
I thought of all the people I have to blow.
This list is already.
And look, I got a lot of work
enough.
ahead to me. And it's late. So let's wrap it up, guys.
David Fincher, you're blowing him like 12 times.
Oh my God. Every film that man has fucking made.
God. And you know what?
So, anyways, thank you for listening to that mess.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe someday we'll get the list of
Yeah.
who Corey has to blow.
Why don't you tell us who you want to blow on our Instagram? Where can they find that, Josh?
They can find us on Instagram at Nerd on the Podcast.
We get a lot of weird DMs.
I know.
you
I just
you
mean,
did-
who are you giving 5 stars to?
Carping
Jesus
all
Christ.
them DMs, baby.
You did this to us.
I'll take them.
You can find us
He likes taking it too.
Twitter.
You can find us on Twitter at Nerd on the Pod. You can find us on YouTube. You got to search Nerd on the Podcast. All of our episodes are videos too. I think a big thing that we really need to say is we need to say a thank you to all of our listeners because
Yeah.
at the time of this recording, we're number 2 on the TV and film category.
By the time you hear this, we
Huge
might
deal.
be number 1, baby.
we might be.
Because of you.
Because
Yeah.
of you.
So give us some stars on the old podcast app, a rating if you could.
Subscribe.
Some reviews would be
You could
great.
throw us some of your coffee change too.
There's this
Yeah.
weird back-end algorithm that might decide it, or it's a replicant sitting in an office.
Or it's, something.
just saying, I like it.
I like
Look,
that.
I'd be happy to be a replicant.
Upvote
He
Okay.
knows what a 5-star review means to Corey. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. When you can find all that information on our website.
Yeah,
which is
all of that stuff is on our website. All of our various social medias.
nerdonthepodcast.com.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Media.
Media.
No,
media.
Media.
Media is
Media.
its own plural.
On everything.
Pluralisms.
Yeah.
So
Where can they find you?
you can find me on Twitter at just Josh and ya.
Look, Tom, right in
He
the
looks at me
eyes.
straight in the eye.
Tom hates it when I say that.
It's
you
like
can-
when you go to a place, it's like, hey, can I get that drink, no ice? Can I get a cup filled with ice? It's like, you son of a bitch. Just dead eye.
You can find me on Instagram, Joshua S. Manley, Facebook, Joshua Sterling Manley, IMDb. You can find me on PSN, Sterling J85. I'm there. Find me. You can search me
Out and about.
out and about and
That
things.
sounds so tiring to find you.
That is the world, man. We are
Well,
overrun.
Josh, if they couldn't remember that, what one website do they need to remember?
Nerdonthepodcast.com.
Yeah.
It has everything
On everything.
on everything.
Tom, what about you?
Yeah, this is Tom. Thanks, Corey. And you could find me at Tall Dark Not Ugly on everything on IMDb.
Not true. PSN. He's not Tall Dark.
So on
Not ugly.
PSN, it's Tall Dark _N0TUGLY.
Not ugly with a zero
I hate
instead.
it.
Okay.
It sucks. I'm gonna kill whoever took the original one.
I'll help you.
And you could also
Call me a
this is the
replicant.
first time we're actually saying it. My other podcast that you can
Yeah.
listen to other
Yeah.
comic book stuff too. If you're that much nerdy or you want to hear some of the great stuff that's going on in Sacramento, the Capes Crusaders. They're also on iTunes and all social media as well.
Show them they got some Southern California love. Because
Yeah.
I don't think they believe that yet.
If you love this annoying voice and other great things about it, but I mean,
It's a great podcast.
if you're that weird subsection of nerd that's only comic books, then check that out. But Corey,
Me, you
what
can
does
find
he
me
work with me in?
on the Instagram at Corey89 or at We Are Storyboard. That's BORED and wearestoryboard.com. Or you can find me on Xbox, Corthaniel, or Blizzard as well. It's just Corthan, CORTHAN. Find me. Let's play some Blizzard games.
Ali, you can find me on YouTube, youtube.com/futurefoplays.
You can
Find
listen
me
to that
on-
voice all day.
You can, I do a lot of videos. You can come watch them, listen to me, talk if you like that sort of thing.
I love it.
Talk to me, Ollie.
The channel's right now centered on Destiny. So if you're playing Destiny, if you like video games, definitely stop on by. You can find me on Twitter at FutureFoe and PSN Future_Foe.
There it is, guys.
That underscore life.
Nice.
Thank y'all for joining us.
But as always,
Nerd on.
Ending broadcast.